this edition of Southern Newsweek, the Mayor and Chief Executive front up over more investigations of fraud at the Dunedin City Council. We take a look at a new policy around drug and alcohol testing for students. And Moana residents call on the council for help protecting a local wildlife reserve. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. The discovery of further fraud at the City Council is revealing another weakness within the organisation. There's an exploit in computer software used by the Council and many others around the country. But staff say the problem's being fixed as fresh cases of fraud and theft are investigated in the wake of the City Fleet scandal.
More fraud is being revealed at the DCC, with another 5 cases uncovered in the past 18 months, following the $1.5 million City Fleet scandal. Already one employee's been dismissed and another disciplined, while others no longer work at City Hall.
Relatively small amounts, certainly compared to the City Fleet fraud, relatively small amounts. The largest of which, $8,000, that's been through the courts and prosecutions followed.
Although the incidents are bad news, Bidrose says most of the cases have come to light through staff whistleblowing, and that shows efforts to make staff more vigilant against theft and fraud are working. Ongoing fraud awareness training has also highlighted an exploit in council computer software. Bidrose says it's already being fixed, and she's happy to see staff taking a zero-tolerance approach to such avenues that could be taken advantage of.
We've really tightened up our approach to gifts and taking free tickets, taking free hospitality. We don't take perks. And so there's not a grey area. You can get given a scone, but not much more, frankly.
Mayor Dave Carl says the new revelations prove council processes to detect fraud and theft are working, and he hopes that'll prevent large-scale incidents like the City Fleet fraud from happening again.
But I think with the new protocols and systems in place, it would probably be very, very difficult to mount a fraud like the one we had at City Fleet.
Bidrose admits the latest incidents are damaging for the council and its staff, and she hopes attempts to enforce zero tolerance mean they won't be repeated. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Dramatic erosion at St Clair is causing residents to call on city councillors. One man's urging the council to fast-track recommended measures for reinforcing the sand dune, and he says the cost is justified.
St Clair's been getting a pounding in the last 6 weeks. Heavy seas washing away much of the sand, exposing underlying rock and causing the sand dunes to deteriorate. It's a concern for many residents, including Bill Brown, who's just fronted up to the City Council.
Well, what's prompted me is just the sheer speed and the extent of the erosion in Section 2, which is the area from the St Clair Surf Club to the Scout Hall.
He says it's the worst erosion he's ever seen at St Clair, and his concerns are shared by many seaside residents who have lived in the area for decades. Brown says the council commissioned 2 reports on the issue in 2010 and 2011.
Both of which refer to a permanent wall, either as a buried backstop or a stone revetment.
It was recommended that work happen within a decade, subject to monitoring, and Brown says the council's waited long enough.
Council have adopted the recommendation in that they have a 10-year period to wait and see, but 5 years of that is gone, and we've got this incident which is strongly suggesting that they need to get onto that work immediately.
He's confident the council will be proactive on the issue and says the work's justified, whatever the cost.
If you look at what those sand dunes are protecting, it's protecting the whole of South Dunedin, which of course is just essential that we protect those areas and give people the confidence and security that where they're living is where they'll continue to live for many, many more decades.
City councillors are keen to work with their regional counterparts at the ORC to discuss a solution, which residents hope will come before the next big storm. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
More Otago polytechnic students are subject to drug and alcohol testing through our revised policy. It permits testing in response to accidents on campus as well as cases of just cause. And staff say it'll ensure students are fit to work in dangerous conditions.
Otago Polytechnic's home to a wide range of hands-on courses designed to get students experiencing what life is like in their chosen industry. A desire to ensure they're all safe has prompted an expansion in the organisation's drug policy. Previously, it's just applied to arboricultural studies, but the Polytech's Director of Organisational Development, Matt Carter, says it'll soon cover all areas that are potentially hazardous.
It just provides the ability for, if there's an accident or incident, or there's just cause is the term that's used, then testing can occur if necessary.
The second draft of the expanded policy has recently been considered. Carter says it's being changed to give students a choice in how they undergo drug and alcohol testing if there's just cause for that to occur. He says risk needs to be minimised in the more dangerous parts of the Polytech.
So it's about ensuring that people are fit for operating and working in that environment. And the other one is about modelling good practice, because a lot of industries are expecting people to be non-impaired as well when they get out into the workforce.
The Polytech's received about 12 formal submissions on the second draft. Feedback's been positive, with many people considering it a good move for safety. Now students and staff are getting a chance to have more input.
They will have that opportunity until the end of September, and then we will look at finalising the approach for an implementation in early 2016.
Carter says the policy should have a fairly minor impact on the average student, but he's hoping it'll make campus life much safer when it takes effect next year. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
On average, local parking wardens are subject to abuse every fortnight. That's according to the latest data compiled by the City Council, and is prompting calls for calm.
Jane LeBeau says parking officers need thick skin. The job involves early starts and late nights, keeping an eye out for illegal and inconsiderate parking. In the last financial year, there's been 30 different incidents of abuse towards local parking officers. But LeBeau says the sometimes thankless role is a crucial one.
Well, it frees up the parking for other people to use the parking to do their shopping or to do whatever else they need to do around the town. So, it's making it fair for everyone to find a space in Dunedin.
Local incidents of aggression towards parking officers include threatening behaviour, as well as verbal and even physical abuse. LeBeau says most people understand that parking controls are necessary, although the odd flare-up happens.
We are trained to deal with difficult people, and the training is ongoing. And it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, and we are prepared for that.
The City Council issued more than 60,000 parking fines in the 12 months to July, boosting coffers by more than $2 million. LeBeau says double parking and other poor etiquette's common in Dunedin, which is unfair on all motorists, and she urges drivers to act rationally when ticketed.
Talk to us. I'm certainly willing to listen to somebody and why they are parked the way they are, if it's legally parked, or even on a pay and display, why they're late back or whatever it is. Talk to us. We will listen. We'll take everything into consideration.
Despite the obvious downside, LeBeau finds her job rewarding, as she's constantly meeting interesting people from all walks of life. But for her, the best part is serving the city, keeping things safe and fair on the streets. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
A number of concerned residents are hoping to protect a threatened ecological reserve. They're worried that increased activity from locals and tourists will drive away wildlife, and they're appealing to the City Council for support.
This is the Aramoana salt marsh, scarred by tyre tracks. It's a major concern for members of the Aramoana Conservation Trust. Chairman Bradley Curnow seeking support from the City Council in the Trust's bid to protect the Aramoana Ecological Reserve and the native wildlife within.
Where in the future are we going to have areas where sea lions can give birth, where they can breed, where they can just be sea lions? And the answer is there's not very many places left in Otago.
Members are also worried about the project to restore the historic Aramoana jetty. They're not strictly against the restoration, which is endorsed by the council, but they're worried the new jetty will bring more people and that'll have a detrimental effect on resident sea lions and yellow-eyed penguins.
We worry about what impact a jetty may have on their habitat because we have 2 sea lions who have been born there in recent history, Lena and BK.
They say the Aramoana salt marsh is nationally recognised for its ecological significance, one of only a couple in the country that's still in pristine condition. And tyre marks like this are extremely damaging.
Those imprints are likely to last decades, and on a salt marsh of national significance, I think is quite undesirable, quite unacceptable. As Bradley said, this is an ecological area. It's one of the highest categories short of a national park in terms of its status.
The council's got no jurisdiction over the Crown Reserve, which is administered by the Department of Conservation, and Trust members are working with DOC to find a workable solution. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a call for a change to the rules when it comes to getting a full driver's licence. And we tell you why a winning homebrew is being mass-produced for everyone to sample. Welcome back. University of Otago researchers are calling for driver's licence time reductions to be scrapped. Those who complete defensive driving courses can get their full licences faster. And a local study shows that policy has dangerous side effects.
Defensive driving and street talk courses are designed to improve driver safety and responsibility. As an added incentive, course participants are able to apply for their full licence faster. Dr. Rebecca Brookland of the University of Otago is involved in a major research project looking into that time discount, and the results of the study are startling.
Something's happened and they actually had an increased risk of having a traffic infringement notice, and it was a 40% increased risk when we just look at the association between having a time discount and a subsequent traffic offence.
Speeding's the most common offence of first-year full licence drivers who have taken road safety courses, and a higher proportion are caught speeding than those who don't do the courses. Brookland says the big question is why.
What you could potentially hypothesise is that they were really keen drivers to get through GDL as soon as possible, so they were very compliant, law-abiding during that stage because they potentially didn't want to slow that process down.
She says even when factors like age and gender are taken into account, there's still an increased risk of traffic offending among time-discounted drivers. So she's calling for that time reduction to be scrapped.
This research, along with other New Zealand research that looked at traffic crashes after full licensure, both show that those who have the time discount go on to be riskier full licensed drivers. So it's actually got a safety disbenefit.
Brookland's among a core team of about 5 researchers who have spent more than a decade on this study, and she's alarmed by what it's revealed. So she's hoping her call for change will be heeded to make the roads much safer. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
A multi-million-dollar propagation facility, almost 20 years in the making, is finally open at the Dunedin Botanic Garden. It's the product of the City Council's single largest investment in the garden, and it allows the expansion of almost everything the country's oldest garden offers.
With the pulling of a ribbon, the culmination of years of work officially opens. The Dunedin Botanic Garden now hosts New Zealand's newest propagation facility, allowing staff to grow hundreds of different plants in a state-of-the-art environment.
I think there's a sign of euphoria amongst the staff and the team who have been involved in this project. It's finished. We've reached the crossroads, really, moving from the old facility, and now we've got something brand new, something very, very special.
The new site means a wider variety of plants can be grown at the garden, and Matchett says staff will take advantage of that. Each glasshouse has a carefully controlled climate, with even sub-Antarctic plants able to be grown locally. It's a big step up from the previous propagation house, which was simply no longer up to standard.
'96 was really the crux point of where we were going to go with the propagation facilities. The old complex has basically reached the end of its economic life. The environmental systems there were hardly keeping up with what was required, and we really just had to move on, but it was some time before the next step was taken.
Matchett says it was touch and go whether the project would go ahead, due to many ongoing issues the City Council has battled in the last few years. But the $6 million upgrade's complete after almost 2 years of construction. And in coming months, it'll be opened up to train locals and teach school children about horticulture.
Previously, we were restricted by the small space we had and the conditions around health and safety. We just weren't confident in being able to manage that properly. And now with the new facility, the world's our oyster really. So it's a matter of engaging with the community groups, schools, and letting them know what we have to offer here.
Matchett says the old facility this one replaces will soon be demolished and the vacant area integrated into the Botanic garden, a historic community space that's just taken a giant leap forward thanks to this state-of-the-art complex. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
A local man's homebrew is being mass-produced for public sale. He's making hundreds of litres of beer after winning the homebrew contest at Dunedin's Craft Beer and Food Festival. And his drop is being perfected with professional help.
It's every home brewer's dream, concocting the perfect beer with some of Dunedin's finest brewers. Brett Huliston savouring the chance to recreate his winning recipe on a grand scale, having entered the preferred dark porter at last year's Craft Beer and Food Festival.
I've been an avid home brewer for the last 10 or so years, so it always interests me, so I'll give it a crack.
And that's paying off, with the beer set to be featured in this year's festival. The winning brew is based on a robust porter with added bourbon oak chips for flavour. And although he's an award-winning brewer, Huliston remains modest.
It was a bit of a shock really. I didn't really rate their beer that highly myself, so it was good.
Emerson's brewery staff are helping Huliston make 400 litres of his specialty brew. And senior brewer Jim Falconer says the process for large-scale production is much the same as brewing at home.
Sometimes there's a few issues with scaling up, but it's not a huge jump from the volume he's done to what we're brewing, so it's basically just a matter of increasing percentages of malts, and should be pretty close, hopefully.
This is the second time the brewery's been involved with the festival and the accompanying homebrew competition. And for those who want to enter this year's contest, Falconer has some advice.
Biggest one in a homebrew situation is just being really conscious of keeping everything as clean as you can, which is one of the big things we do all day, every day, is a lot of cleaning, and recording things so that you know exactly what you've done and you can reproduce them that way. So, being a bit pedantic.
He's enjoying the opportunity to work with local home brewers and impart some brewing wisdom. And he's looking forward to the festival's return in November, when Huliston's brew will be filling punters' pints. Ruby McAndrew, 39 Dunedin News.
And just ahead on Southern Newsweek, how a visiting African drummer is helping inspire local percussionists, and hundreds of primary school pupils learn a lesson in the importance of art. Welcome back. African music is inspiring some of the city's budding artists. A tribal drummer from the Congo is sharing his love of rhythm and his passion for Dunedin, and he's spreading cheer among the masses.
He doesn't look like a typical southerner, but Congo-born Sam Manzanza has strong ties to Dunedin. He was involved in the original Dunedin Sound movement, and he's returned to the city to play music with his son, who was born here.
When I arrived from Africa, I arrived in New Zealand, I stayed in Dunedin. So I was very happy to come back to play this music that I'm playing now around the world.
His Afrobeat style is adapted from the Congo's many different tribal rhythms, and it's all about positivity.
I try to play more happy music. The music will make people dance, to feel happy, to enjoy.
While in Dunedin, he's also been taking workshops with local children in several schools, teaching them coordination and rhythm.
The kid, they learn something from it. They beat on the drum. I showed them easy step of a dancing and easy beat on the drum. They learn it quickly. They enjoy it. It was very good.
Manzanza says the Afrobeat is perfect for learning, applicable to aspiring musicians, young and old, with an interest in any genre.
To have the rhythm, you know, when you got the rhythm, it's easy to learn in your instrument. It's enjoyable.
He's heading back to Wellington for a gig, then to Australia for an international music festival. But he plans to return to Dunedin for the upcoming Vogel Street Party in October. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
A world-renowned Canadian street artist is in Dunedin, making his mark on the University of Otago campus. He's painting a mural on the side of a lecture theatre through a collaboration between the university and the Students' Association. And the artist is drawing inspiration from near and far.
Art has a new home at the University of Otago. Canadian street artist Fluke and partner Talia Curran are on campus painting a new mural, months in the planning. And they're happy to bring some vibrancy to the traditionally greyscale campus.
The work is inspired basically through a collaborative process. So we have part of it is with the Maori department here at the school. So we have some of that stuff in the mural. There's my traditional style of graffiti and letterwork and color palettes, and also things that we've seen and come across since we arrived.
Fluke says the artwork's continually evolving based on his local experiences. And although he finds it challenging to have a constant audience of passers-by, he's happy to show just how much work goes into creating a mural.
We have to deal with having a lot of students and traffic and things like that, but it adds to the experience for the students. They get to see the artists at work and experience street art rather than just see the finished product.
The visiting artists are gauging public feedback as they go. Fluke says so far people on campus are supportive of the piece, something OUSA events manager Dan Hendra is happy about, after more than a year of planning the $17,000 project.
Around the orientation period last year, where we worked with a national-based artist, Sean Duffel, to create a small piece just on the OUSA Recreation Centre wall. And that was hugely successful. And because of that, we gained a bit of interest from the university to do a collaborative piece.
Hendra says it's yet to be decided whether further artwork will be commissioned around campus. And while there's certainly potential for more, this mural's taking all the attention, set to be completed in the next few days. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
A local man secured a class victory in the South Island Bocce Championships. The tournament was held at a local school, and it's showing off the sporting opportunities available to residents with disabilities.
Gunning for victory. Competition ramps up at the South Island Bocce Championships. More than a dozen players from as far as Queenstown and Invercargill took part in the tournament, and organisers say their efforts have shown how great bocce is as a sport for people with disabilities.
The reason I've been involved in the sport for a long, long time, because it's about competition. It's not being about nice to the person with a disability. It's about winning. So for me, this sport is superb. It offers people with a disability, with cerebral palsy in particular, the ability to travel the world.
Coffee says people with cerebral palsy make up a large chunk of the bocce player base. The game itself is similar to bowls and has even scored the same, with differences in how players take turns. 18 players registered for this year's tournament, and although icy weather meant some couldn't make it, Coffee says there's been plenty of tactics and skill on display.
You definitely have to be able to throw a softball down the range, and you've got to be accurate with it. But after that, there's a bit of chess going on. You might not throw the ball where someone will think, well, that's not quite in the right place, but then you've put that ball so you can bounce off that ball and use it again.
Coffee says high-level play can result in multiple balls hitting their intended target, and that makes judging a tough process.
You're out with torches looking for gaps. You're using bits of paper to check it. You're using feeler gauges to do that thing. You know, so yeah, but it's a very competitive sport.
Canterbury players had a good run in the tournament, securing multiple class victories. But Otago man Hank Dykstra secured a win for locals. Organisers are celebrating the tournament's turnout too, as the biggest local event in about 7 years. Another win for the small but dedicated boccia fan base that calls Dunedin home. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
And finally, hundreds of primary school pupils are using art techniques to interpret their favourite seasons. Their work is part of the annual Peninsula School's art exhibition on display at Bayfield High School, and it's aimed at proving the value and importance of art to young participants.
The recent cold snap is serving as inspiration for some of the city's budding young artists. 10 primary schools are involved in this year's Peninsula School's art exhibition, held at Bayfield High School. And the college's head of art and photography is happy to promote art to the young pupils.
I think the purpose of holding this every year is to bring the cluster schools together from the peninsula and the area that we are in. But also it's just to promote that whole thing about thinking outside the square. We have literacy and numeracy that we have a lot of funding for from the ministry, but as far as creative arts is concerned, there's not a lot.
Lammers says the exhibition also allows teachers to see what's being done in other schools, so they can take ideas back to their own classrooms. This year, there's increased use of digital and photographic techniques, creating more diversity.
Standards seems to be getting higher all the time, and they come up with some wonderful ideas. I mean, as a secondary school teacher, you look at some of the stuff and say, I never did that when I was at school, and a lot of it's got to do with the teacher, but some of these kids just have wonderful ideas.
A number of awards have been dished out to entries from each school. Anderson's Bay pupil Honey Hinere is one recipient of a highly commended award. Her picture inspired by autumn, her favourite season.
It's the sunset with a tree, and the sunset, its leaves are falling, so that's why we did it at school.
Honey's deciduous tree work features paint and Indian ink, and she says being able to use different materials and techniques is one of the reasons she loves art.
You can create stuff with paint and draw stuff with it.
Members of the public have until Friday to check out the exhibition and explore the seasons through a mixture of painting, photography, fashion and collage. Ruby McAndrew, 39 Dunedin News.
And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Please do visit our website dunedintv.co.nz, where you can download Southern Newsweek and watch individual clips of 39 Dunedin News or webcast the show. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.